Have you ever seen a bear in Rome? Well, this story follows an adventurous young bear named Benito who decides to visit the Eternal City. Excited for his first trip to Italy, Benito arrives in Rome and immediately heads to the world-famous Colosseum. Gliding through the ancient ruins, he couldn't help but imagine the roar of the crowds from back in the day. Next, he explored the nearby Roman Forum, the bustling center of ancient Rome. He marveled at the ruins of government buildings and temples and learned about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. As the sun beat down on the cobblestone streets, Benito decided to cool off with a scoop of gelato. What a refreshing treat! While enjoying his dessert, he met some friendly local children who invited him to play a game of hide and seek amongst the ancient ruins. How could he resist? The children led him through a maze of narrow cobblestone streets and across charming bridges until they reached a quiet piazza where they all sat down to share stories and laughter. The language barrier didn't matter. They communicated with smiles, gestures, and most importantly, friendship. Benito then continued his solo exploration of the city, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells of this historic place. As he wandered through the ruins of ancient aqueducts, he couldn't help but wonder how these incredible structures were built so many years ago. He also visited the Pantheon, an ancient temple that is now a church. Impressed by its massive dome, he thought to himself, how did they build this without modern technology? He then took a moment to appreciate the beautiful architecture surrounding him. The intricate carvings, the weathered stone, the arches and columns all spoke to him about the rich history of this place. But it was more than just the buildings that impressed Benito. The atmosphere of the city, the energy of the people going about their daily lives, the street vendors selling their wares, the musicians playing in the squares, all of it combined to create an experience that was truly unlike any other. Later, he found himself in an open square playing a game of catch with a group of local kids. They were curious about the bear from America, and he was happy to share some stories and learn about their lives in Rome. The language barrier didn't bother them. They had fun simply running around the square, laughing and enjoying the simple pleasure of a sunny afternoon. Before long, though, it was time for Benito to say goodbye. As he prepared to leave, he couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. He had fallen in love with the city of Rome and its people, and he knew he would miss them. On his last night there, he treated himself to a farewell dinner of pizza and pasta. Sitting in a small restaurant, he reflected on his journey and all the amazing experiences he had. He thought about the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, the Pantheon, and all the other places he had visited. He smiled as he remembered the friendly faces of the locals, especially the children who had welcomed him into their games and shared their laughter with him. He then took a moment to appreciate the beauty of Italian culture, the art, the music, the food, the way of life. He realized that his journey had been more than just a vacation. It had been a chance to learn, to grow, to experience something truly special. And as he looked up at the stars that night, he made a promise to himself. He would never forget his time in Rome, and he would always cherish the memories he had made here. With a full heart and a grateful spirit, Benito closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep, dreaming of his adventures in the Eternal City. The next morning, he woke up early and headed to the airport. As his plane took off, he looked back at Rome, knowing that he would never forget his time here. Back home, surrounded by his family and friends, Benito couldn't stop talking about his adventures in Rome. He showed off his souvenirs, shared his stories, and most importantly, he spread the word about the beauty of Italian culture. Inspired by his journey, his friends and family decided to plan their own trips to Rome, and before long, Benito's stories became a thing of legend in his hometown. People would often ask him why a bear would travel all the way to Rome, and every time he would smile and say, because sometimes you just have to see it to believe it. And with that, he would launch into another one of his amazing stories, bringing his listeners along on his unforgettable journey through the Eternal City. Benito's adventures in Rome were not just a dream come true for him, but for everyone who heard his stories. He showed them that no matter where you go, the most important thing is to keep an open mind and a curious heart. And so the legend of the bear who went to Rome continued to be passed down, inspiring others to travel, explore, and appreciate the beauty of different cultures. Meanwhile, in Rome, Benito dreamed of returning to the city that had captured his heart. He missed the Colosseum, the Roman Forum, the Pantheon, and all the other amazing places he had visited. He thought about the friendly faces of the locals, especially the children who had welcomed him into their games and shared their laughter with him. He remembered the taste of pizza and pasta, the smell of fresh gelato, the sound of music in the squares, the feel of the warm sun on his fur. Every day he would look up at the sky and imagine himself soaring through the clouds toward Rome. He dreamed of exploring more parts of the city, discovering new hidden gems, meeting new people, and experiencing more of the Italian culture that had captivated him. And as the years passed, Benito's dream of returning to Rome never faded. In fact, it grew stronger with each passing day. Then one day, something incredible happened. Benito's dream finally came true. A kind woman who had heard his story decided to make his dream a reality. She raised money in his honor, and with enough funds gathered, Benito could finally afford to return to Rome. His excitement was beyond words. He couldn't wait to see the city again and experience all the wonders it had to offer once more. When the day of his trip arrived, Benito was ecstatic. He boarded the plane, and as it soared through the clouds, he felt a sense of joy and anticipation. Finally, he was on his way back to the Eternal City. As the plane touched down, Benito's heart raced. He stepped off the plane and took a deep breath. Feeling the warm Italian air on his fur, it felt so good to be back. With his bags in tow, Benito made his way through the airport, eager to start his adventure anew. He had planned his trip carefully, making sure to visit all the places he loved and to explore new areas as well. First on his list was, of course, the Colosseum. Standing in front of this ancient amphitheater, Benito couldn't help but marvel at its grandeur. He spent hours exploring the ruins, imagining the gladiators and wild animals that once filled the arena. Next, he headed to the Roman Forum, the heart of ancient Rome. Walking among the crumbling ruins, Benito learned about the history of the city and the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Then he stopped for a gelato, indulging in the sweet treat that had become one of his favorites. As he strolled through the city, Benito couldn't help but notice the familiar streets, the charming piazzas, the picturesque bridges. It felt like coming home. And as he walked, he saw the same friendly faces, the locals who had welcomed him years ago. They greeted him with open arms, happy to see him again. In the evenings, Benito would sit in cozy restaurants, sipping wine and enjoying traditional Italian cuisine. He savored every bite of pizza, pasta, and tiramisu, reminiscing about his first experience in Rome when he had fallen in love with the food. Throughout his trip, Benito kept a journal, writing down his thoughts, feelings, and experiences. He wrote about the history he learned, the food he ate, the people he met, the laughter he shared. Each entry was a testament to his love affair with Rome. As his trip drew to a close, Benito felt a sense of contentment. He had revisited his favorite places, created new memories, and experienced the magic of Rome all over again. On his last day, he stood in Piazza San Pietro, looking up at the magnificent St. Peter's Basilica. With a heavy heart, he knew it was time to say goodbye. But as he boarded the plane home, he carried with him a renewed sense of wonder and appreciation for the city of Rome. Back home, surrounded by his loved ones, Benito couldn't stop talking about his adventures in Rome. He showed off his souvenirs, shared his stories, and most importantly, he spread the word about the beauty of Italian culture. Inspired by his journey, his friends and family decided to plan their own trips to Rome, and before long, Benito's adventures in Rome became a thing of legend in his hometown. People would often ask him why a bear would travel all the way to Rome, and every time he would smile and say, "Because sometimes you just have to see it to believe it." And with that, he would launch into another one of his amazing stories. bringing his listeners along on his unforgettable journey through the Eternal City.